Jiu-Jitsu athletes, do you want to decrease your risk of injury on the mat and have a more dynamic guard game? Follow along with this Jiu-Jitsu mobility routine. What's going on, guys? My name is Josh Settlage and I am the BJJ strength coach. My good friend and mentor Phil Daru called me up and he's like, hey Coach Jay, I need you to put everybody on game real quick. I want you to show them a solid Jiu-Jitsu hip mobility routine. With this hip mobility routine, what we're going to be focusing on is really making sure that we improve the active range of motion of our hips and our ability to get into different positions we may find ourselves in on the mat. Before we dive into it, I do want to let you guys know that you guys can get a free 7-day trial of Phil Daru's new training program, Fight Dominance. This is the exact training system that Phil uses with the best combat sport athletes in the world. Athletes like Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Dustin Poirier, Maureen Shea, and Gazeri Matuda. You guys can get a free 7-day trial of Fight Dominance just by clicking the link in the description below. So for this mobility routine, we're going to be tackling a couple different things, and we're going to need a few different pieces of equipment. You're going to need a foam roller and a band. Mobilization number 1 is going to be the 90-90 foam roll adductor smash. We're going to get into this 90-90 position, which means we have a 90-degree bend in the ankle, the knee, and the hip, and also a 90-degree bend in the back leg. For the back leg, you're going to rest your adductor or the inside of your thigh on top of the roller, and you're going to rock back and forth, finding areas that are tight or you feel are a little bit sensitive. Once you find a spot that's a little sensitive or a little tacked down, what you're going to do is you're going to work through internal rotation of this back hip. So I found a spot about right here that's pretty tight, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a few seconds internally rotating my hip, trying to pick up my back foot as high as I can. You want to do this without coming up off the roller. That's cheating a little bit, so try to keep that other hip down on the floor as you're working through internal rotation. Once you spend a few seconds on that one spot, go ahead and start looking for some other spots. For the front leg, what you're going to be doing at the same time is looking to turn your chest towards the same direction as your front thigh, and you're going to try to get your chest to touch your knee. You're probably not going to get there right away. I know I definitely can. I'm not that mobile, but what you don't want to do is cheat and round over at your upper back to reach your knee. You want to keep your chest up nice and tall, tight upper back position, and gradually lean forward. To add one bonus part to this mobilization, something I've been doing lately is doing the hand-foot glove. I'll take my hand like this, interlace my fingers between my toes, and I'll start working on some ankle mobility and some foot mobility, kind of opening things up, getting my feet a little loose. This is a great exercise that you can perform for 2 minutes on either side, and you can mix this in as part of your Jiu-Jitsu mobility routine. Mobilization number 2, the 90-90 hip drill. So we just went through the 90-90 foam roll adductor smash where we got into that 90-90 position. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do an active mobility drill where we're moving in and out of hip internal and external rotation. The back leg is going to be in hip internal rotation where our knee is coming to the inside of our body, and our front leg is going to be in external hip rotation where our knee is coming to the outside of our body. And then we're going to switch over to the other side. Get comfortable in this position. You don't have to go through this fast. You can spend a few seconds in each position before switching over to the next side. But the goal is to be able to move from one side to the other without the use of your hands. So keep your hands close to your chest, on your head, wherever you want to put them. Switch over to center and then back down to the other side. One thing you can do to add a little bit more effectiveness to this mobilization is once you get to one side, think about pulling this outside part of your knee down into the floor, and think about pressing the inside part of this knee down into the floor. So you can do some isometric holds into the ground on one side and then switch over to the other side. And you're going to perform 3 sets of 10 reps on both sides. Mobilization number 2 is going to be banded hip distraction. This is one that you're going to need a band for. You can attach it to a post, you can attach it to a really heavy kettlebell. Just need a solid anchor point. What you're going to do is you're going to feed your leg through and you're going to pull it up like a pair of pants. You're gonna pull the band all the way up to your hip. The first position that we're gonna be in is just a regular run-of-the-mill banded hip distraction. I have the band pulling behind me, and I'm looking to keep a vertical thigh angle right here. I don't wanna be back like this, and I don't wanna be really far forward like this either. I wanna keep about a pretty vertical thigh angle right there. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep my shin in a neutral position for right now, and I'm gonna press downward and try to poke my femur out through my butt. Sometimes you can feel this stretch a little bit better if you start leaning to the side. We're gonna spend about 30 to 45 seconds in this position, and then we're gonna go into external hip rotation. You're gonna take your front leg, move it forward just a little bit, enough so that you can take your back leg and block your ankle. Once you're there, you're gonna try to open up that hip as much as possible, and then you're gonna do the same thing, kind of rocking back and forth, finding that stretch in the glute while allowing the band to pull your femur bone back. You're gonna feel it in the outside of your glute or in your glute med, and you're also looking to put pressure downward into the floor and try to poke your femur through the top of your glute. Once you've spent about 30 seconds in this position, we're gonna focus on internal rotation. So instead of having our shin come across our body, we're gonna take our shin and point it to the outside of our body. If you need help, you could put like a dumbbell or a kettlebell right here to keep that leg from trying to swivel back in, but kick your leg out like a kickstand, and you're gonna allow the band to pull your leg back as they're hanging out in this position. Again, you'll stand here for about 30 seconds, and then the last position that we're gonna do, we're gonna come up into this really deep lunge position. So I'm opening up this back hip here, getting a big stretch. I am externally rotating my hip on this side. I like to put pressure on my foot, that way I'm not turning my foot out with my knee. I wanna really focus on opening up the hip. This is something that we'll do for a total of 2 minutes, spending about 30 seconds in each of those 4 positions. Mobilization number 3, the Cossack squat. If you've been following the channel for a while now, you may be familiar with this exercise. This is one of my personal favorites. I know Phil uses this one from time to time. This is gonna be an active mobility drill that you can use to help open up your hips, improve your range of motion, and getting into a solid ass to grass position. And it's gonna also provide a great stretch for the adductors. You're gonna take a wide stance, and you're gonna push your butt back and break at the hips just like you would on any other squat. And then you're gonna shift your weight over to one side, and you're gonna squat all the way down to one side. You're gonna keep this opposite leg straight as much as possible. You're gonna try to keep your heel, big toe, and pinky toe glued to the floor the entire time, and then you'll come back up. I'm not coming over to one side and letting my heel come up, and I'm not letting my foot come up. I really wanna test my mobility and improve my mobility in this position. Pushing the butt back, feet glued to the floor, coming back up. You're gonna perform 3 sets of 10 reps on each side. We've gone over several mobilizations to help with hip external and internal rotation. Now we're gonna be looking at hip extension and hip flexion. So the main thing that we wanna look at when we're looking to improve our mobility for jiu-jitsu is making sure that our hip can not only have full function in external rotation and internal rotation, but also hip flexion, so our ability to pull our knees to our chest, but then also having full hip extension, being able to squeeze this glute, fully open up the hips when we shoot in for takedowns, if we're picking things up for a big throw, or we're throwing our hips into a submission. We want to make sure we can move our hip in every range of motion that we need to. So this next mobilization is going to tackle hip extension. You're going to get close to a wall. You're going to put your shin as flat as you can up against the wall. And then from here, you're going to take your opposite leg, get into a lunge position, and you're going to drive yourself back, and you're going to feel a nice big stretch in the quad and in the front of the hip. This is called the couch stretch. Shout out to my guy, Kelly Starrett. If you can't get all the way up in this position, that's totally fine. You can hang out down here, and as you become more mobile, you can slowly work your way up into a more upright position. You wanna hang out in this stretch for 2 minutes on either side. Last but certainly not least, we have the ATG split squat. This is going to be an active range of motion drill, and there's also going to be some strengthening of the tissues and tendons and muscles involved in the lower body. This is an amazing exercise to not only help develop hip extension, help lengthen and open up those hips, but also improve your ability to get into deep ankle, knee, and hip flexion. When performing the ATG split squat, you're gonna take a nice long stance. When you're just starting out on this exercise, it's okay if your heel comes up off the ground because we want to drive forward as far as possible. So you're gonna start in this position here. You're gonna drive your knee forward as far as you can over that foot. And if your heel comes up a little bit, that's fine. But what we really wanna do is make sure that we're getting as much ankle flexion as we can, which means our knee is driving really far over our toes. We wanna get lots of knee flexion, which means that we're closing the gap between our hamstring and our calf. And we wanna get a lot of hip flexion also, which means that we're trying to get our hip below the top of our knee. Now, when I turn around to this other side, you'll see that as I'm doing this, I am trying to get the biggest stretch possible on this hip flexor. Once I'm in this position, I'm gonna drive back to the start position and then hit another rep. You're gonna perform 3 sets of 10 reps on both sides. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Josh Settlage. You guys can follow me on Instagram at Joshua Settlage. Be sure to check out and follow my good friend and mentor, Phil, at Daru Strong. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to get an inside look at the exact training system, the exact training methods that Phil is using to help the best combat sport athletes in the world, be sure to click the link in the description below and you can start a free 7-day trial of Fight Dominance. Catch you guys later. Peace.